Hello, Final Fantasy community. It's me, Jared Scott, also known as the Zodiac Brave, and I'm here with my exclusive Opus 23 spoiler for all of you. I had put up a musical hint video just to kind of put something out there beforehand, and what I played in that video, for anybody who wasn't able to catch it, was the battle theme from Final Fantasy Dimensions. And you might be thinking to yourself, Final Fantasy Dimensions? What is Final Fantasy Dimensions? And that's because it's actually the FFL category. You're like, why is it FFL? It's Final Fantasy Dimensions. So before we get into the card, very quick little Square Enix history for you, or Final Fantasy history for you. So back in the year 2012, Final Fantasy gets a mobile game, comes out in Japan called Final Fantasy Legends. And they release it, they decide they're going to localize it, send it over to North America, and they're like, well, hold on. We already have a game called Final Fantasy Legend over here. And now you're thinking, what? There's a game called Final Fantasy Legend? We'll come back to that in a second. But they have to localize this to something, so they decide to call it Final Fantasy Dimensions. So in North America, this game series is called Final Fantasy Dimensions. There's two of them. But like I said, they already had a Final Fantasy Legend. And again, you're thinking, what was that? So we're going to go back in time now to 1990. 1990, Squaresoft at the time is releasing the first in the Saga series, the first game there, if you're familiar with the Saga series at all. It's coming out on the Game Boy, and they decide when they're localizing that to release it in North America that they really want to ride on the IP they've already kind of established with the first Final Fantasy game, which had been successful. So they're like, we're not going to call it Saga in North America. We're going to call it Final Fantasy Legend. Yeah, this guy right here, Final Fantasy Legend. So this was the first Saga game. They ended up doing that for 3 games worth. But yeah, so we already had Final Fantasy Legend. So when it came time to localize the Legends game in 2012, they called it Dimensions. So that's where the confusion comes from. This game, of course, is made in Japan primarily, the TCG. So that's why it's the FFL category, because over there, it's called Final Fantasy Legends. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about my spoiler. So, who is it from Final Fantasy Dimensions? It's this guy right here, Parai. Now, before I get into what he does here, I do have to admit that when I did my musical hint, I made a little mistake, which was that Parai is actually from the second Final Fantasy Dimensions game. I played music from the first one. So if anybody who actually is familiar with those games was like really disappointed right now that I got that wrong, I apologize. But anyway, this guy, what's he do? He's got 5k, he's 2 CP, pretty standard stat lines right there, so nothing over or under curve. And when he enters the field, you can receive a point of damage. He likes to hit you with that nice little sword of his. In return, he creates a second auto ability that lets you search for any FFL character. So the thing about Parai is we've only had one of him before, by the way. And let's take a quick look at that guy. Yep, there's our original Parai back in Opus XI. Look at that guy, much bigger. Look at those big numbers. 7 CP, 9k body. This guy never saw play. Never been useful in standard, and he's from Opus 11, so was he useful in any of the limited formats? I don't know, because, and nobody knows, because in the spring of 2020, nobody was doing draft or sealed. Nobody was doing much, except for staying home. But anyway, back to the little guy. So here we go, Chibi Parai. He's back. They've shrunk him down. They've downsized him. He's smaller. All of his numbers are smaller, but he's got that cool search right there. And the thing about fire searches historically is that searches in the fire element have been much more narrow or kind of tricky to get through than in other elements. So for example, they'll have you do things like with Meath, where it's a pretty broad search, but you have to jump through the hoop of discarding a multi-element card to do it. Or they have another broad search like Alfino, and he's got to be entered the field from something other than casting him, right? So like the way that we get these good searches is from that. Other examples is that they'll have searches that are specific card names, like Vanille searching for Hope or Fang or Lightning, or Dominion Legionary searching for himself because he's on a journey to find himself. And actually, it wasn't until this selfie that we got last set that we had something in Fire that was kind of a broader search. The closest thing we had before that was like there's a rain that will search for monsters from WAF, things like that. But Fire doesn't really tend to get these broad category searches. So having an effect like that just kind of perk up my ears a little bit. That being said, a searcher is only as good as its targets, and there's no better example of that than Restrictor, because this guy sat in our binders for 14 sets in a row until Weiss and Nero came along and broke him out. So the question, of course, right away, after seeing what Parai does, is does he search for anything that's actually useful? So it says character, which is cool, because there's 3 options: monsters, backups, and forwards. So let's start out by looking at what monster options we have. All right, let's take a look here. What monsters can we get from FFL? Okay, there's nothing for monsters. So, yeah, nothing to report there. Moving along. Let's look at backups, because backups are always a juicy search target, especially in Fire, which doesn't have a lot of ways to search them. And it turns out with backups, we do a lot better than with monsters here. There's actually 21 currently existing FFL backups. You can see it all pictured right there. And the first thing I noticed when looking at all of this is that there's 2 CP backups in almost every element here. And the ones where they don't have 2 CP1, they have sometimes like Gramps, which is 4 CP, gets you a card draw. So Parai is a way to get into pretty much any of the other elements that you want. Other ones that stand out here is Moody. So Moody does C-play, and I do like the idea of being able to search for Moody and then chaining that into searching for Amaterasu. There's been so many effects recently in Fire, like Montleonis, or things that break backups that seem to want you in Fire to be getting a bunch of backups and then doing things with them, and Fire is like one of the worst elements at searching for backups. So, you know, Parai being able to find one for you, not too bad, whether you're going for Mont or something else. Another thing that stuck out to me from the list of backups we could search for is Mina. In Ninja decks, I know that a lot of the juicy cards are wind or lightning, but they do like to throw some fire in there as well. We get the fire backup and such. So being able to get her to then kind of, again, chain into other things in the Ninja deck is kind of cool. Parai, unfortunately, has the wrong job for a Ninja deck, but, you know, maybe you throw one of them in there, just kind of help with consistency or something like that. And then there's this one. So Sarah FFL. Also searchable. So if you can think of any decks that use Sarah FFL and also play fire cards, may want to get her really quickly. Maybe he fits in there. Who knows? That's the things that stuck out to me with backups. With forwards, there's a whole lot more options, like 60 of them or something. We're not going to show the entire thing of that. So I'm just going to show you some quick examples of things that stuck out to me as being interesting. First one here is Gawain, also meta relevant right now. Parai, once again, wrong job for this. He's not a knight, but Gawain is so strong in knight decks that, you know, maybe you try throwing in one Parai for consistency in there, see what happens. Beyond him, there's Morrow. This Morrow, by the way, the art here gives us the entire, basically, playable character crew from Dimensions 2. But anyway, he sees play every once in a while. He pops in, you know, so you can search for him. I don't know if it's a great choice, but it's just better than some of the other ones that are out there. Soul, the reason why I kind of looked at this one for a second is because there's so much crystal support happening in this set. A bunch of cards that use crystals and are generating crystals, and so it kind of makes us look back at the old crystal stuff and go, is there anything there? Is there anything that we can actually like build around now that works and functions? And this effect has always been strong, being able to play something 4 or less just for the cost of the crystal. The buff for all your forwards is pretty dang good. Again, being able to play a forward of cost 4 or less, if there's any like really strong 4 cost forwards that may have multiple elements and are a lot of keywords, you know, being able to play something like that, cheated in, pretty good. This is my favorite combo, though, that I came up with when looking at this, which is Mist. So I like the idea that in any element combo, if you're playing Parai, if you can get him onto the field, you can play him, take that point of damage, go search for Mist, and then immediately play her with the Warp. And it doesn't matter because you're not using a water element for her anyway. And then immediately play her and just let her start getting to work. And there's been more effects recently that are looking at or referencing the top card of your deck, things like Siren and stuff. And so the more that we have things that are carrying about the top of the deck, then being able to look at and manipulate it gets increasingly powerful. So I like that just because it's kind of universal in that you can just play Parai, get right to Mist, get her doing her thing. All right, now we've also had some cards from the set from Opus 23 that have been spoiled that are from FFL. So we have the other Mina. We talked about the backup before, but you also can get the forward one because you get the character here. We have Jornay, or Jornay. I haven't played the game. I don't know how you pronounce it. So another option. And then similarly, we have another Amo. And one of the things that stuck out to me after seeing those three cards and knowing that I have Parai is that we might be getting versions of the rest of the Dimensions 2 characters. Back in Opus 11, we got one of each of them. Some of them have popped up since then, mostly Morrow. So seeing these makes me think, you know what? I bet you in the set there's going to be another Morrow, a Moody, a Reeg, and a Deathlord. Just wouldn't surprise me, just to kind of fill out the rest of the cast there. It seems like there's kind of this hidden little Dimensions 2 support that they're sneaking in there. All right, something else to say about Parai is that the damage that he does, it's very much like Bosch to me, in terms of that the damage might not necessarily be a bad thing. We've gotten to the point there's so many good damage 3 effects that people have gotten smart. They'll get you to 2 damage and then they'll wait to go beyond that until they're basically ready to make their push, because they know that getting you to 3 damage is no bueno. If you're playing against the 4 element wool deck, do not let them get to 3 with the Ferris search and all that until you're ready to actually take them to 7 there. So if they stick you at 2, having that option to play it and then get yourself over to 3 when they didn't want you there is always pretty strong. And Parai doing that damage to yourself, it doesn't have to be in the element combo of Fire Earth. You don't have to have both those elements. There's a couple other things that Fire does to damage themselves, obviously, like the Zonde backup or Dataluma forward and stuff. So they've got a little bit of this element of kind of stabbing yourself for effects. But I like the idea there that you can also flip it around to make it a benefit. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this card. So once again, thank you to Sarah and everybody at Square Enix for giving me the opportunity to share this card with you. And if you see any other combos or anything else that I didn't mention that seems like a cool way to use him, then go ahead and comment, let me know. Follow me on Facebook, the Zodiac Brave, and I hope that you all enjoy Opus 23. We'll have it in just a couple weeks here. All right, thanks.